Part 1. The America he could no longer believe in. In America, you're expected to stand when the anthem plays, hand over your heart, eyes up, the flag waving to the sound of the horn, and everything around seems to freeze. It's a moment of pride, of tradition, of unity. That's what they say. But what if you look at that flag and see not freedom, but fear? What if, instead of pride, there's only pain? Pain they won't show on TV. Screams drowned out by sirens, bodies lying on the asphalt while the crowd stays silent, while the court looks away. That's America, too, the one he could no longer believe in. An America where some live with privilege and others die from prejudice. Colin Kaepernick stood on the field, uniform, helmet, millions watching. He was on the team. He was in the system. He was in the game. But inside, something broke. He saw the videos. He heard the cries. He knew the names. Tamir Rice, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Michael Brown. Every time, a new name. But the same story. The officer says he was a threat. And everyone shrugs. As if that's normal. As if that's just an incident. But it's not an incident. It's a system. And one day, during the anthem, he didn't stand. He stayed seated, on the bench. Quiet, no signs, no words. He just sat. Part 2. Who he was. Before the knee. Before he became a symbol, he was just a kid with a ball. Colin Kaepernick. Born in Milwaukee. To a white mother. He never knew his black father. He was adopted, raised in a family that loved him. But a family that didn't know what it meant to be black in a white world. He grew up, feeling different. At school, on the street, in the locker room. He felt it before he even understood it. On the field, he was a genius, movement, like dance, a pass, like a bullet, a mind, like a chess master. University of Nevada. Records. Scouts. In 2011, he gets drafted into the NFL. San Francisco 49ers, pro sports, stadiums, millions. He was the American dream. 2012, he's a backup. A few games later, a star. The league was thrilled. He was charismatic, smart, fast, and most importantly, not too black. He looked good on a cover. He fit in, didn't say too much. He smiled, a player, a role model, a hero. But America missed one thing. He wasn't playing a role. He was waiting. Waiting for the moment he'd understand where the game ends and reality begins. Waiting for the next killing to break his silence. Waiting for the anthem to stop sounding like music and start sounding like a reminder that in this country, his life is not a priority. He became a star. But inside, a shadow was growing. The shadow of a country that loves black men only when they're playing, only when they're safe, only when they don't protest. And one day, this guy, who once made stadiums rise, decided to go down on one knee. Part 3. The moment he couldn't take it anymore. It was August 2016, an NFL preseason game. Just another evening at the stadium, just another anthem. The crowd stands, hand to heart, the flag rises, and he stays seated. No one notices. He's silent. He doesn't wave a flag, doesn't make a statement, he just sits. He sits. And inside him, a fire burns. Too many deaths, too many justified, too many times when a black body means nothing. A day later, a journalist notices. "Why didn't you stand?" he asks. Colin looks him in the eye, no fear, no apology, and says, "I won't stand to show pride in a flag for a country that oppresses black and people of color. For me, this is bigger than football." That was the point. The moment the game ended. The moment he became dangerous. Not because he attacked, but because he refused to participate. Because he refused to stay silent. At the next game, he doesn't sit. He takes a knee, not out of disrespect, but in mourning, in remembrance. in resistance. A knee, as a gesture. Humble, silent, and at the same time, powerful, like a scream. He didn't know that a storm was coming, that threats would begin, that the president would say his name and demand he be fired. He didn't know that this moment would be a point of no return. He just took a knee, because on that day, he couldn't stand any longer. Part 4. He took a knee, and everything fell apart. In America, they love heroes, but only if they're obedient. Colin wasn't obedient. He took a knee, and the world exploded. Television. How dare he? He disrespected the flag. Politicians. Fire him. Get him off the field. Shut him up. The President of the United States. Personally. Get that son of a bitch off the field. The crowd roared. Stadiums booed. His jerseys burned. Posters torn. Social media drowning in hate. But there was another voice. Quiet. Defiant. Thousands, then millions, followed his lead. On the basketball court, a knee. In the school locker room, a knee. On stage, in prison, in class. The knee became a code, a symbol, a sign of someone who sees and refuses to stay silent. And him? He stayed silent. No justifications, no apologies. He knew the truth costs a lot, and he was already paying. The NFL stayed silent. At first, then distanced itself. And then stopped calling. His contract wasn't renewed. Teams turned away. He was healthy, younger than most, more experienced, stronger, but suddenly, no one wanted him. We need someone calmer, managers said. We don't need drama. Drama? He didn't even shout. He just knelt. That's how Colin Kaepernick lost everything he had built for years, for silence, for a gesture, for truth. But sometimes, to remain human, you have to lose everything else. Part 5. What he lost. He knew there would be noise, but he didn't know there would be this much silence. At first, just a pause. His contract ended. We'll talk about it, they said. Then, the calls stopped. Scouts stopped showing up. Agents shrugged. No one's interested, they said. He looked at the screen, the schedule, the list of teams, the dozens of names being signed every season, players with no experience, with injuries, with arrests. But not him. He was too dangerous. Not for what he did, but for what he symbolized. It's just business, the league said. We don't want to split our fan base. We don't want controversy. We don't want you. His name vanished from the field, from screens, from the team's website, as if he never existed. He wasn't even invited to a workout, wasn't given a shot, wasn't even allowed to pretend it was fair. And then came something else. Haters, threats. Sponsors, left. Advertisers, pulled out. TV hosts, ripped into him live on air. He lost millions. But the money wasn't the point. He lost the right to be an athlete. You run, pass, fall, win, and suddenly, you're the enemy. He lost his teammates. Most stayed silent. Some walked away. I don't want trouble, they said. He lost his quiet life. Every word he said became a weapon. Every silence, too. He was left alone. No field, no team, no future, in what had once been his dream. He was exiled, quietly, without trial, without explanation, simply because he became inconvenient. Part 6. But what he gained. He lost everything he had worked toward since childhood. But he gained something that can't be sold. The right to be himself, even when they hate you, even when the price is the silence of the entire world. He didn't just become an athlete, he became a symbol. Thousands looked at his knee and stood with him. Students in schools, teachers, actors, musicians, athletes, from basketball to tennis, even soldiers, even veterans, those he was supposed to be grateful to, stood with him. They said, "This isn't disrespecting the flag. This is respecting life." The knee stopped being a protest. It became awareness, bitterness, memory. It became a challenge. To everyone watching the anthem, and knowing that under it, innocent people are dying. Colin became a voice for those who hadn't been heard in a long time, for those who screamed into silence, for those whose bodies lay on the asphalt and whose names vanished into statistics. He went beyond football, speeches, interviews, documentaries, charity work. He built organizations that helped victims of police violence, teenagers without a chance, people whose rights were long ago stolen. He became a light in a very dark system. Yes, he no longer threw the ball, but he threw a challenge, and every day he kept standing for what he believed in, for the truth, for what he had known from the very beginning. Part 7. The Silence of the NFL. The NFL, the National Football League, over $100 billion a year, a machine. It loves stars, but it hates noise, especially inconvenient noise. When Colin took a knee, the NFL pretended nothing had happened. It's a personal choice. We don't get involved in politics. We stay out of the debate. But behind the scenes, it was different. Colin disappeared. No explanation, no rejection, no public word. Teams, one after another, refused to sign him. Some said it plainly. He's good. But we don't want the drama. The league didn't release a statement, didn't defend him, didn't stand beside him. Even when other players started kneeling too, when fans demanded answers, there was only silence. But worse was what came next. The NFL tried to erase the trace. A ban on kneeling during the anthem. New conduct rules. Penalties. Fines. Not a solution, but a mask. Not support, but control. Colin was no longer in the league. But the spirit of protest remained, and that enraged the system even more. In 2018, Colin filed a lawsuit. He accused the league of colluding to push him out of the game. The NFL denied it, then went silent, and then it paid. The amount, undisclosed, the terms, sealed. But the fact remains, they knew and they chose silence. The system doesn't like those who reveal its cracks. Part 8. The People. Ho stood with him. He took a knee, alone, but staying alone, they didn't let him. First, it was one teammate, then two, then the entire defensive line, then another team, then basketball, the NBA, players from Cleveland, Golden State, Miami, LeBron James in a black t-shirt, I can't breathe, then tennis, Serena Williams. On the court, director, clear. I stand with him, then baseball, women's teams, high school teams, college students, kids at recess. The knee became a sign, deep, pure, the kind you don't explain. You just do it, even soldiers, even those they wanted to condemn him. Instead, they wrote, "We fought for his right to take a knee." Across America, around the world, in schools, on the streets, in prisons, on stages, black, white, Latino, Asian, religious, atheist, poor, rich. They knelt, each with their own story, their own pain, their own reason, but with one gesture, Colin's knee became a language understood without translation. It wasn't a protest, it was a manifesto of humanity. And even if he didn't play, his cause lived on and grew stronger with every knee, with every look, with every new name they could no longer erase. Part 9. He wasn't the first, but he was the trigger. Before Colin, there were others, John Carlos and Tommy Smith, the Olympics, 1968. The 200-meter final, the podium, the anthem, and two black fists raised into the sky, the world froze. America condemned them. They lost everything. But the gesture remained. Muhammad Ali, the king of the ring. He refused to go to war in Vietnam. My enemies are not in Vietnam. My enemies are here, in my country. They stripped him of his belts, banned him from the ring, but his voice became immortal. Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, NBA, the 90s. He refused to stand for the anthem. He said, "The flag is a symbol of oppression." They suspended him, and then erased him. Colin knew their names, their fates, their price. But back then, there were no social networks, no million cameras, no millions of eyes. They were sparks in the dark. He became a flame. Why him? Why that moment? Because the mask was too thin, because the bodies in the streets became too many, because the videos could no longer be ignored, because the youth were done being afraid. Colin became the one through whom it all broke loose. Yes, he wasn't the first, but he stood in the right moment of history, and instead of walking by, he stopped, sat down, and took a knee. Sometimes one gesture is enough for a generation to say, enough. Part 10. Today, and what comes next. Colin Kaepernick. He no longer steps onto the field, still in shape, still training, still ready to play. But no team calls. He remains outside of sports, but inside, the most important game. The game for justice, for equality, for life. He writes, he films, he speaks. He founded Know Your Rights Camp, an organization that teaches Black youth their rights, their power, their voice. He funds lawyers for victims of police violence. He supports families left without sons, without fathers, without justice. Netflix made a series about him. Books were written about him. Universities study his name. And yes, he's still hated. They still try to erase him, to diminish him, to mock him. But now, they can't. Because his gesture stands in history, like steel, like a line, like a point after which silence is no longer an option. The world is changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. And if someday someone asks, when did you start to hear? When did you start to see? The answer will be simple. From the moment one man took a knee. If you want these stories to be heard, for the truth not to be forgotten, and for voices not to drown in silence, subscribe to this channel. We will keep speaking until the world starts listening.